24% of organizations want to release code on an hourly basis, yet only 8% of those organizations are able to do so. My name is Paul Nashawaty, and I'm the practice lead for the AppDev practice at theCUBE Research, and I'm joined today by Richard, Google Cloud's Chief Evangelist. Hey Richard, how you doing?
Hey, I can't say no to you, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for being on. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I work at Google Cloud. Our team of developer relations experts and technical writers try to make sure it's easier for people to learn, use, activate, and stay on Google Cloud and enjoy their time here. So I'm someone who likes to learn about tech and help other people figure it out. I'm a pretend engineer and pretend developer who at least still tries to stay hands-on nowadays.
Oh, I don't believe you're pretend anything. I think you get it done. I mean, I've been following you for years, and it's amazing what what the market is doing right now. Speaking of that, when we look at what Google is up to and Google Cloud is up to, many organizations are focused on modernization, right? They're looking at how they're trying to improve their business, trying to build their KPIs to these modernization efforts. And our research shows that the cadence for delivering these applications is rapidly increasing. We see over 500 to 1,000 new applications just being developed at the edge alone. Right. We also see a huge adoption of no code and low code options taken off where the citizen developers are creating new applications. So there's a lot happening here. And with this explosion of application, our research was showing that just a year ago, only 18% of applications were using AI in production workloads and production applications. And a more recent study for the same question that was asked, that number jumped to over 54%. And I will guarantee that it's much higher today. And so, Richard, I know this area is top of mind for you. What are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, those numbers, you almost have to get them hourly just to get an accurate percentage of who's doing what. I think that's the, as you mentioned, the opportunity here is fascinating because I can't think of a time, frankly, post-internet, maybe mobile, but probably internet, where the who, the what, and the how has changed at the same time. As you mentioned, the who's changing. Whether you want to call it citizen developers, anyone wants to start vibe coding, whatever it is, any of us can kind of build something, right? You can just build things. You can just build a front end, a back end. So the who is changing, the what is changing. It's not just automating things you already have. In some cases, people are using AI to enter entirely new opportunities, which is exciting. So the what is changing, but the how is changing. How do I use AI agents to build software? How do I use them in a call center? How do I use them to do upfront design or to do data analytics or data science? When has that convergence happened at the same time? I can't really come up with many cases. Cloud computing wasn't that the same way. Things like Edge or IoT weren't the same thing. Kubernetes or serverless weren't that. I think you're going back to maybe the mobile revolution, or even further back to the internet.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely shifts or paradigm shifts are happening very rapidly. I think that, like to your point, these paradigm shifts are, it's not like it was the changes are happening incredibly fast, right? And, and in a recent dialogue that you and I had, we were discussing potential changes and challenges using generative AI for our software architecture tasks. Do you see like these tasks that, or AI kind of helping accelerate the application development around, these areas? Because AI is really one way to help as an enabler for acceleration, but it also can be a challenge. What are your thoughts?
It can, as you said, I mean, architecture is a big piece of it. I'm hard pressed if you can show me one role in an organization that cannot be positively impacted by AI in some way. And whether it's an architect helping vet certain characteristics, heck, even draw diagrams or mind maps, let alone try to figure out, hey, how do I synthesize potentially tons of reference material? Maybe it's a bug backlog. Maybe it's a bunch of white papers about best practices. Maybe it's our own backlog of different systems. And how do I pass all of that to even an LLM and help it make sense of it for me? That was a lot of work before. So that sort of even research and synthesis to an architect, to a software developer, to others, that's all a big piece. But, at the same time, as you say, it's going to change the what and how we deliver then that software, what we produce, how do we maintain it? I just don't see any role that should be giving a stiff arm to AI at this point.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that I look at with regards to AI, we were talking about that earlier stat about, AI being incorporated in production applications. I look at it from the app dev space, right? I covered, day zero, day one, day two in DevSecOps, build, release, and operations across the CI/CD pipeline and anything that touches the SDLC. But when I think of the AI as an enabler for those pieces, there's a level of maturity for DevOps, for application developers, and for the release teams to get that code out the door and to get the whole pipeline working more efficiently. And to your point, Richard, it's really hard to say like, okay, AI is not helping in certain cases. But I also think it's a level of maturity, because when you look at AI and you look at utilizing AI to accelerate whether it is your application development or your documentation or whatever it may be, customer support with chatbots, the problem is that I see with organizations is, and I've heard this story where organizations say, well, it's not our fault. The AI tools we use wrote it, so it's their fault. It's like, no, there's still a level of accountability that goes with using those tools. And I think that's something that the belts and suspenders has to be in place. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no doubt. Look, the AI works for me. I don't work for the AI. Like, that's the way we've got to have our mindset. And there's still ownership that we have to take. But, and you alluded to it a little bit. Look, I don't think this is a trend that you're allowed to cheat on in terms of like, let me just skip ahead and be an AI native company. You have to figure out infrastructure automation. You probably need a mature AI API strategy, because how are you accessing some of these systems with an agent if you have no access mechanism? You need an API strategy. What's your data management strategy? Are you sourcing AI agent advice based on, let's say, support information, but you're only updating that support material once every 6 months? That's not going to work. So how do I think about it? Data strategy, a lot of real-time updates. How do I make sure I have a strong API strategy? Have I finished some of my cloud migration, or at least my cloud native thinking model, so I can continuously deliver software? To your point, it can't just be, hey, we're not really good at certain things. Maybe AI will just change how we operate IT. I don't think that's true at all. I think you have to have some of the fundamentals in place to say, hey, we know how to ship software through continuous automation. Now we can do AI generated code and trust it because we have a good code review process, security scan process, gated releases, canary deployments, rollback techniques, good observability. Now we can do AI. I think that there is an entrance criteria, and you want to be careful to not necessarily think that this can paper over some things that are still maturing in your organization. You got to finish some things first before this is going to be a big benefit to you.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I also think it's kind of an analogy I think about is it's like entrusting your entire CI/CD pipeline and SDLC to your intern to make sure everything is going to go out properly and make sure everything works. I'm not, saying anything bad about an intern. I'm just saying that the fact is you don't know what you don't know, right? And there's only a certain level of, to your point, maturity that developer will have. So you have to have that belts and suspenders and having a human in the loop to check at each stage of the release cycle. I think it's important, and accountability has to be there as well.
Yeah, again, no doubt. I think it's one of these, when you look at this as a tool and not as a replacement, there is some things I think we're being sometimes too safe. There's things that this will replace in terms of things we have to do and such. But for people, I think this is it makes us better. It doesn't mean I should just have junior employees enabled by AI. I need more expertise now than I had before, so that I can also instruct these things, so I can understand their output, so I can design the proper architectures. I need to double down on skills training and expertise. And the people who know AI will always, at this point, I think, be better than those who refuse to use it. So you want to just be better with it, but this is not an excuse to outsource expertise. If anything, it's a time to double down on expertise.
It is interesting though, Richard, because when I did in my studies, I was finding that 67% of respondents indicate that they're looking at hiring generalists over specialists because they just can't find the specialist to do the job. And AI is helping the generalist reduce complexity and kind of narrowing that skill gap issue that we're seeing with hiring that specialist. I think that's a factor that also needs to be taken into consideration, that what are organizations doing and what tools are available in order to enable them for success. Which kind of leads me to my next comment. And, I follow your daily reading list. I see you posting that. I'm like, what's Richard going to put out today? So I want to see. Well, one of the recent topics that you put out in a recent post was to learn from failed negotiation and why you shouldn't talk to architects about microservices anymore, and how badly the industry is doing with the infrastructure automation, right? I wanted to kind of pivot a little bit because I think that's related to this conversation of using AI and automation, and where many organizations are, at various levels of maturity and entering into that automation process. What advice would you give to these organizations?
Yeah, thank you for reading. It's a labor of love. I think it's an important thing for us to learn and share. I don't think hoarding knowledge is a success strategy in 2025. I think you should be making sure that you might have an interesting take on an information, but we should all be in the free-flowing, open source mindset of like, help other people know what you know. In terms of some of those things, yeah, I mean, one of the pieces I had shared was Ian wrote a great piece on this idea of, hey, it's not even worth talking to architects about microservices because nobody can agree on the term. We can't understand the business value of these things. And some people honestly aren't willing to make the org changes necessary to get the benefits. So what's the point? And there's been, as you mentioned, the other pieces sharing about just the kind of the poor state of infrastructure automation. I think some of this goes to the modern push now even to platform engineering and saying, look, I don't think developers should be writing a ton of Terraform to build out their infrastructure. Maybe this is blasphemy for me. I think that's if you're asking people to be that full stack, we can talk about we want to hire generalists. I think we overestimate how generalist we can all be. I think you still have to be T-shaped, right? There's still something you're going to have depth in that you understand, and you can be dangerous in some other areas. But saying, I'm going to hire a general purpose dev who is not only going to write my front-end app, my back-end app, they're going to architect correctly, secure it really well, talk to the database, do a little ML engineering, and possibly architect my hardware. You're dreaming. Like, that is not a human. That's not a person who exists. And so this idea of platform engineering, saying, hey, maybe we're not going to ask every engineer to architect down to the metal and automate every step. Maybe they can automate down to a platform. It has some constructs for how do I acquire services? How do I deploy services? How do I operate my application? Maybe not just a pile of infrastructure. And you're seeing people pick on this as an important idea that says maybe we'll get better at this when we have experts who can define platforms and are amazing at infrastructure and scale and resilience and quality attributes. And then we can enable developers on those sorts of platforms so they can do what they're really good at and stop having these failure rates that you and I see of so many companies aren't good enough because they're asking everyone to do it all the way down versus the right abstractions that can increase your chance of success, create repeatability, help your security posture. Why are we asking everyone to do everything?
Yeah, that's true. Like one of the things that I was thinking about when talking to CIOs about their monetization strategy, there's a lot of discussion around encapsulation of heritage applications, right? Keeping it intact, leaving it alone. It's not a modernization play per se, but what it is it treats that heritage application as a system of record, or even in today's world, like an LLM, right, so to speak, right? And so, like, I was noticing in a couple of conversations that we were having and such, we were talking about, Gemini App Canvas, right? We were talking about how it can accelerate not only the front end pages, but also the back end API connections. And when you think about modernization and you're creating these new front end experiences to attaching to heritage applications, that's a stage of modernization. I think that makes a lot of sense. Would you agree with that? Or is that how, Gemini App Canvas can be used for kind of new approaches?
I think in the end of the day, we're all going to start building even more software than we are now. If you're a build versus buy shop, a lot of companies you probably talk to are buy shops. They buy ERP. Do not use, don't vibe code a SaaS app. I don't think that should replace your workday. I'm not there yet. So people buy plenty of things, right, to run their business, or legacy apps that work, but they are going to write software to do at least three things, right? They're either going to put certain API interfaces into that thing that maybe wasn't programmatically available. And so you might write a wrapper API that makes it easier to talk to that legacy system, the SaaS app, whatever. You might write front-end reporting kind of applications. Hey, I want to do analytics, or I want to do other things in the front end. Or, as you mentioned, you might even be putting front-end sort of mobile experiences or web app experiences on top of legacy systems, other SaaS systems, or you want to mash it up, whatever it is. So even if you are a buy shop, you will be writing software. You will be writing, again, interfaces, APIs, other ways to create experiences around that legacy tech or heritage tech, around some of your SaaS applications. And so these new class of tools, sure, if I use something like the Gemini app canvas, which is brand new to kind of speak my app into existence, would I be doing production grade things with this right now? No. I would jump then into something like Gemini Code Assist or some great industry tools for building some fairly robust apps, even with natural language. I think that opens up a wild door for people to, again, go faster. I can build a Go backend API faster with App Canvas than any human can type alive. I promise you, it happens in a second. It's amazing stuff. Does this replace my need to know Go coding? No, I need to still know Go to know what that code is, how to properly build it, test it, extend it. But I think you're going to see a lot of teams using tools like what we offer with Gemini, with other tools, to quickly put some of these other quick software interfaces around some of their systems. I think that's great. But back to our earlier discussion, you still need maturity in how do you handle that code? Because all you're going to do potentially, if you do it wrong, is just shove code into environments that you don't understand. You don't understand the code, there's security issues. And so it's great to go fast, but only if you have a pipeline that gives you some confidence that you are shipping quality software that you can understand and troubleshoot and secure to production. Otherwise, you're just passing the buck. And in 6 to 12 months, you're going to have a disaster on your hands.
Absolutely, absolutely. And and these trends are not unique, right? I mean, everyone we speak to, customers and prospects will always say, "Oh, our environment is very unique. It's bespoke, and that looks really good over there, but it's not like ours." And the reality of it is everyone's having the same challenges. And I look forward to we have some upcoming events. We have KubeCon coming up in London. We have Google Next coming up. That's going to be a great event. What will anything you want to share that because these trends are like really relevant, top of mind to people? Anything that might be coming up that we want to kind of give a precursor to?
Yeah, you say paying attention to these events is good because this is the most. I mean, you and I have been around a little while. I don't think we're Gen Zers here. We've seen some things. This is a rapid pace, and not everything is settled. Like there's a new AI framework on a weekly basis being shipped right now. There's tons of new patterns, services. We're all learning. So, I don't think you should have a lot of strong convictions personally at the moment. I think you should have a lot of curiosity and a lot of humility. That would probably be my technique. So, but pay attention to these events. What's being announced? What vendors are trying to extend into different places? Where are there opportunities? And start listening for the customer stories. Sometimes the vendors are ahead of the customer, but with a lot of AI things, the customers are coming up with some really awesome use cases, sometimes even ahead of these being formal products for different things. I love how people are using Gemini and Google AI Studio to do things that, hey, we look at that and go, they keep doing the same thing. Maybe that should be a product experience. So this is more organic than just a vendor-led hype trend. That's not what this is in AI. This has been bottoms up from people using these tools in cool ways, and now people trying to figure out how to productize it. So pay attention to what customers and users are saying. Where are they starting to innovate around the edges? What are the vendors doing and where are they playing? What standards are kind of emerging, but be careful because I don't know of any formal standards in most of these areas yet. There's cool proposals out there. There's a cool proposal for this. Here's a cool framework for that. Love it. Pay attention, be curious, be humble, and then figure out how do you have the agility at your company to experiment faster. Because if you take 6 to 12 month experiments, you're going to get crushed in this current wave. You have to be in how do we do 3-day experiments? How do we learn quickly and iterate? To me, that's the muscle you have to build right now, because that's how you're going to properly intake, vet, prove out, and then decide what you want to do with these technologies.
Yeah, innovation is key. I think that's the kind of the main focus around the trends that we're seeing. Richard, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking the time today to be on the podcast and appreciate your insights. I know you're busy. I know there's a lot going on here, but this is important stuff for the audience to hear. I can't wait to go to Google Next and learn more and see you and have conversations about this in person as well. I want to thank the audience as well for attending. There's just a lot of information here that we have. Feel free to reach out to either Richard or myself. You can find us on social media, and we'll be more than happy to continue the conversation. Thank you for your time today.